Well, I'd just like to say to all my fans out there who supported me for all these years, come to my shows, bought my records.
Since he was the first person to introduce the world to raw, hardcore country music, George Strait has earned the right to compete for the title of King of Country Music. He has earned this right through years of talent, hard work, and introduction to the world. It was a hit with the public. Over 70 million records were sold in the United States alone, and over 120 million records were sold all over the world. He holds the record for being the 12th best-selling album recording artist in the United States. Because of this, he is considered to be one of the most successful musicians of all time. The fact that he has been a legendary figure in country music for so many years is not surprising. However, despite the success he has had in his professional life, Strait has had to contend with a number of difficulties in his personal life and family. The heartbreaking information about his son sheds light on some of the difficulties that these challenges present. Today, we are going to take a look at the life of George Strait, as well as the shocking truth about the life of his son. The 18th of May, 1952, found George Strait being born in the town of Poteet, Texas. The town of Pearsall, which was located in the southern part of Texas, was where he spent his childhood. In addition to being a maths teacher at a middle school, his father, John Strait, was also the manager of a ranch that encompassed 2,000 acres and had been in the family for a very long time. While George was still in elementary school, his parents divorced. This occurred when he was still a child. He and his brother, Buddy, were brought up by their father. He was their primary carer, and even at a young age, they were helping out with the work on the ranch. During their time on the ranch, the two young boys gained an understanding of the principles that are prevalent in the rural West. During his time at Pearsall High School, George's high school, he embarked on his journey in the world of music. His band, which was called the Stoics, was a rock band. As far as George is concerned, the Beatles were the focus of their attention. The Beatles were a popular band. I spent a lot of time listening to them, along with a whole bunch of other groups that were popular at the time. Despite the fact that George was not particularly skilled at playing the guitar, he participated in a few other rock bands while he was still in high school. And at that point in time, country music was not even a significant component of his music. George married his high school sweetheart, Norma, in a lavish ceremony that took place behind closed doors after he had completed his year of study at Southwest Texas State University. Then he became a citizen of the United States. 1971 was the year of the Army. Both singing and playing the guitar were activities that he worked on while he was in Hawaii. In addition, he began to appreciate country music performed by artists such as Hank Williams, George Jones, Merle Haggard, and most notably Bob Wills, who was famous for his interpretation of Western swing music. It was at the Army base in 1973 that he became a member of his very first country music band. He was still serving in the military at the time. After completing his service in the Army in 1975, George returned to Southwest Texas State University to earn a degree in agriculture in 1979. He had previously attended the university. During his time at the university, he became a member of a country band known as Stony Ridge after coming across a flyer for the band at the institution. When he became the lead singer of the band, he also changed the name of the band to the Ace in the Hole Band instead. They performed at clubs located close to the campus on a regular basis. Throughout the state of Texas, they performed at a variety of bars, even going as far as Huntsville, which is located in Houston. Their popularity in the community led to them being invited to open for major acts such as the Texas Playboys. They were given the opportunity to record some songs that George had written, such as "That Don't Change the Way I Feel About You" and "I Can't Go On Dying Like This," for a small label in Houston that was known as D Records. Unfortunately, the songs did not achieve a great deal of fame, and as a result, George continued to work on the ranch that his family owned during the day in order to earn additional money. Despite the fact that George continued to perform with his band, he did not have any connections in the band industry. Before opening his own pub, however, his friend Irv Woolsey, who was the proprietor of a pub where George's band performed, had been employed by a major record label. Woolsey was successful in persuading a few individuals from Nashville to travel to Texas in order to witness George and his band perform. Despite the fact that they enjoyed the music, they failed to make a deal because they believed that the band's Western swing sound would not be successful in the marketplace. The big shots in the industry were not sure about George's traditional style in a market that was more into a polished image and pop country sound at the time. George himself made many trips to Nashville in an attempt to get a record deal, but he was turned down by every label. This was the same reason that those who had come to watch him were rejected. As a result of the fact that his music was not receiving the recognition he desired in Nashville, George considered leaving the music industry. Shortly after that, he was presented with the opportunity to design cattle pens, and he intended to accept the position. In fact, he informed his band that he was leaving, but his wife persuaded him to continue his career in music for one more year. Almost immediately after that, in February of 1981, George was signed to a record contract by a major label known as MCA. Under the terms of the contract, they would begin with just one song, and if the song was successful, they would consider making an album and offer him a longer contract. If the song was successful, they would also consider making an album. Following the release of George's song Unwound in 1981, the song quickly gained popularity and eventually climbed to the 6th spot on the Hot Country Songs chart published by Billboard magazine. The Music Corporation of America, MCA, extended his contract as a result of his success, which marked the beginning of his career as a professional musician. This paved the way for him to have a prosperous career in music, and the best member of the entire band remained with him, providing him with support as he began his career as a solo artist. Over the course of the subsequent decade, George released more than 12 albums, each of which broke the $1 million mark in sales. Straight Country, his first honky-tonk album, was released in 1981. In 1982, he released Straight from the Heart, which featured his first #1 country hit, Foolhardy Memory. Straight from the Heart received widespread critical acclaim. Straight Country was particularly well received by critics due to the fact that it was distinct from the pop-style country music that was prevalent during that time period. As a result of this, George had 17 #1 hits, including 5 consecutive #1 hits from 1983 to 1984, which came from albums such as Right or Wrong and Does Fort Worth Ever Cross Your Mind? In addition, George began his career as a performer at the Houston Livestock Show in Rodeo in 1983, the same year that Eddie Rabbitt became ill. Since that time, he has been performing there on a consistent basis, with over 20 shows sold out and more than 1 million fans in attendance. In 1985, he was awarded the Country Music Association's CMA Best Male Vocalist Award and released his debut album of greatest hits. During the same year, his album Something Special, which featured the hit song The Chair, reached #1 on the charts. In 1986, George was awarded the CMA Vocalist of the Year award once more, and he also released his 4th album, which reached #1 on the charts. However, despite the fact that everything was going well with his career, the year 1986 turned out to be a terrible year for George and his wife, Norma. The couple already had 2 children of their own. On October 6, 1972, they welcomed their first child, a daughter named Jennifer. In 1981, they welcomed their son, George Harvey Strait Jr., whom they affectionately referred to as Bubba. On the other hand, the family was dealt a terrible blow in 1986 when their daughter Jennifer, who was 13 years old at the time, passed away in a car accident. A car driven by Gregory Wilson Allen, who was 18 years old and from Staples, Texas, contained her as a passenger. Both the excessive speed of the vehicle and the improper handling of the vehicle led to the accident, which ultimately resulted in the vehicle flipping over. Because Jennifer was not wearing a seatbelt, she was partially ejected from the vehicle and passed away instantly. In the aftermath of this tragic event, George chose to limit his interactions with the media by avoiding interviews and deciding to refrain from discussing Jennifer's passing for a period of 1 year. Following the tragedy, he put little importance on gaining publicity by engaging in conversation with the press. He provided an explanation for the situation, stating that after the death of my daughter, I became even more private. At that point, I have completely shut down everything. I didn't have the desire to engage in conversation with anyone who wasn't particularly close to me. I was under the impression that nothing more serious could possibly occur, and as a result, I decided to proceed in this manner about the situation. It was impossible for George to let his profound sorrow prevent him from performing in order to cope with this tragedy. He continued to create music and eventually had 11 songs that topped the charts consecutively. Beginning with the song "Nobody in His Right Mind Would Have Left Her" in 1986, these songs continued until the song "Ace in the Hole" was introduced in 1989. These tracks were all included on albums that were successful enough to reach the top spot on the country music charts. He made history by becoming the first country album in history to debut at #1 on the charts with his album Oceanfront Property. The decade of the 1980s came to a close with George collecting the CMA Entertainer of the Year award in 1989, and he went on to win it once more the following year. In 1990, he released his 10th studio album, titled "Livin' It Up," at the beginning of the decade. Two of the songs on this album, including "Love Without End, Amen," and "I've Come to Expect It From You," were successful enough to reach #1 on the charts. For a period of 5 weeks, both of these songs remained at the top of the charts. "Chill of an Early Fall," which he released the following year, was yet another album that received positive reviews. The publication Entertainment Weekly stated that George's album demonstrated a change in his style, as he departed from his typical approach in order to experiment with new things. "If I Know Me and You Know Me Better." That were two of the songs that were successful on this album. However, his streak of 31 top 10 hits came to an end with his rendition of "Lovesick Blues," which only reached #24. Despite this, the album managed to reach #4 on the charts, which ended his streak of 8 albums that reached the top of the charts. Then, in the year 1992, the album Holding My Own was sold. 2 of its songs made it into the top 5, despite the fact that it did not have any songs that reached #1. In the latter part of that year, George beginning his acting career with Pure Country. It was for the film that he performed a number of well-known songs, including "I Cross My Heart," "Heartland," "Where the Sidewalk Ends," and "The King of Broken Hearts." A special collection titled "George Out of the Box" was released by him in 1995. It consisted of 4 discs and sold more than 5 million copies over the course of its release. Up until this point, George at Out of the Box has been the box set that has sold the most copies in the entire history of country music. There were a number of excellent albums that George released in the latter part of the 1990s, including "Blue Clear Sky" in 1996, "Carrying Your Love With Me" in 1997, and "One Step at a Time" in 1998. During the decade of the 1990s, he released the album "Always Never the Same" in the year 1999. In the same vein as his highly successful Pure Country album, it climbed all the way up to #2 on the country charts, and also made it to #6 on the Billboard 200. On the other hand, Entertainment Weekly stated that by this point in his career, George was able to take even the most light-hearted material and make it a hit on the radio with his style and grace. Critics had mixed feelings about the album. Over the course of the 1990s, George achieved a total of 17 #1 hits on the country airplay charts of Billboard, which positioned him to maintain his success well into the 20th century. This was followed by the release of his album titled "George Strait" in September of the year 2000, which featured hit songs such as "Go On," "If It's Gonna Rain," and "She Took the Wind from His Sails." The songs in question were extremely well liked by fans of country music. As a whole, George's album was certified platinum. Under the administration of President George W. Bush, he was awarded the National Medal of Arts in that particular year. "Good News, Bad News," a song from his album "Somewhere Down in Texas," which featured Lee Ann Womack, was declared the winner of the Country Music Association Award for Musical Event of the Year in 2005. This was due to the album's widespread popularity. "It Just Comes Natural" was the title of George's new album, which was released in October of the following year, marking the occasion of his 30th year participating in the music industry. The album featured 15 brand new songs, 2 of which were written in collaboration with Dean Dillon, who is a close friend of George's and a songwriter. Positive reviews were released for the album by critics. In an article published in USA Today, George was praised for effortlessly delivering music of consistently high quality. A different review stated that if there was ever a natural in the world of country music, it would be George Strait. The song Rapped by George became a hit in 2007, and it climbed all the way to the top of the country music charts maintained by Mediabase around the clock. This accomplishment was George's 55th single to reach #1 on the charts. Between the months of January and April of that same year, he was the main act in a tour that took place in 23 different arenas worldwide. On this tour, he performed alongside Ronnie Milsap, a legendary figure in the world of country music, and Taylor Swift, a rising star in the industry. It was obvious that George was still a well-known figure in the music industry. It was a year later when he released Troubadour, which climbed to the top of the country album charts without any interruptions. It was also the first song from the album I Saw God Today that made it to the top of the country charts. This year, George was honored with 2 Grammy Awards. The first was for Album of the Year, and the second was for Single of the Year. After receiving the Artist of the Decade Award from the Academy of Country Music in 2009, he was also honored with a Grammy Award for his work on the album Troubadour. The announcement that George's Cowboy Rides Away tour would be his final one was made in September of 2012. This tour was scheduled to coincide with the release of his album Love Is Everything in May of 2013. In addition, he had accumulated 60 #1 hits by the time his single Give It All We Got Tonight reached the top spot in the charts in the year 2013. By accomplishing this feat, he was able to surpass Conway Twitty's record for the most #1 hits on the Hot Country Songs chart on Billboard. He succeeded Twitty's record of 40 hits with his record of 60 hits. Currently, George holds the record for the most #1 songs on any and all charts, regardless of the type of music being performed by the artist. In spite of this, he was not only famous for the numerous songs that reached #1. In addition, George was well known for his one-of-a-kind tours, which included arrangements that were similar to those found at festivals and a 360-degree setup. During the tour that took place towards the end of 2013, he was honored with the Entertainer of the Year award from the Country Music Association for the 3rd time in his performance career. For the second leg of his tour, which began on January 9, 2014, he began his journey. Jason Aldean, Miranda Lambert, Little Big Town, Tim McGraw, and a great number of other performing artists were among those who participated in the tour. 104,793 fans were present at the final show of the tour, which took place on June 7th in Arlington, Texas. All of these artists came together to perform for the audience. It was his final performance for the Cowboy Rides Away tour, and it was held at A&T Stadium. It established a new record for being the largest indoor concert in North America in the past 3 decades, surpassing the attendance of the Rolling Stones concert that took place in 1981 at the New Orleans Superdome. A total of $18,194,374 was brought in by the concert, which also set a new record for the highest earnings ever recorded at a single country concert. On the 15th of June, 2024, George made history by having the greatest number of fans ever present at a concert in the United States for a solo performance. He accomplished this feat in front of a massive crowd of 110,905 fans at Kyle Field, which is located on the campus of Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. This surpassed the previous record that was held by the Grateful Dead, who performed in New Jersey in 1977 and have 107,019 fans in attendance at their show. Additionally, the event successfully surpassed the previous record for attendance at Texas A&M's Kyle Field, which was established on October 11, 2014. During a football game between Texas A&M and Ole Miss, with a total of 110,633 spectators turning out to watch the game. Fans were captivated by George for a number of reasons, one of which was the fact that he was not merely a cowboy protagonist in his songs, he was a true cowboy in every sense of the word. The fact that he was born and raised on his father's ranch was already common knowledge. However, there were some individuals who were unaware of the fact that he spent a significant amount of time on his own ranch in South Texas, where he practiced team roping at rodeos, raised cattle, and rode horses. Outside of the realm of music, he spent a significant amount of time farming and competing in team roping. Over 20 years ago, he and his brother Buddy established the George Strait Team Roping Classic, a significant team roping competition. He raised steers specifically for the purpose of the competition. In addition, it was mentioned that the singer did not raise horses and cattle for the purpose of making a profit. Rather, he did so because he enjoyed doing so. It was George's father who had instilled in him a passion for ranching for generations. In addition, George was overjoyed to learn that his son, George Jr., also looked forward to participating in the activity. On a daily basis, they worked together to manage the ranch. In the same way that his father had become skilled at roping, George Jr., who was also known as Bubba by members of his immediate family, had also become proficient in the sport. He was a member of the Texas A&M University rodeo team and went on to have a successful career in high school rodeos. When George made his declaration, "I enjoy doing everything with my son," he couldn't have been more proud of himself. During his time at college, Bubba began his career as a rodeo competitor. According to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, he thereafter joined the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association and began working as a roper for the organization. He competed in a number of competitions, including the George Strait Team Roping Classic, which was held for the 22nd time in 2004. In spite of this, he was forced to restrain himself from roping for a period of time after he nearly severed his index finger in an accident involving a loop. The Strait family has a strong presence in the rodeo world. George had been the organizer of the Team Roping Classic for the previous 35 years, and he had brought the event to a close in 2017. In a previous interview with the Team Roping Journal, he stated that team roping was his passion and that the moment he was most proud of in the sport was when he brought his son to victory. According to what he said, "It is the most amazing sensation in the world to witness my son win a roping competition, or even just to watch him compete. Even though I'm just watching, I'm sure that I'm feeling a lot more anxious than he is. By some stroke of luck, Bubba and I have been able to win a couple of buckles together, and that, my dear friends, is the supreme achievement." Bubba is involved in the music industry, despite the fact that he would rather avoid the spotlight than be perceived by the general public. During his younger years, his voice was featured on the song Heartland, which was the opening track for George's film Pure Country, which was released in 1992. Throughout his childhood, he worked closely with his father on the composition of songs, contributing to songs such as Living for the Night and Out of Sight, Out of Mind, both of which were included on the album Twang, which was released in 2009. The subsequent 4 studio albums that George released were Here for a Good Time, 2011, Love is Everything, 2013, Cold Beer Conversation, 2015, and Honky Tonk Time Machine, 2019. Bubba continued to collaborate with George on the composition of songs for each of these albums. It was even acknowledged by George that his son had been instrumental in getting him back into writing. "I was able to get back into writing thanks to Bubba. I have had the privilege of witnessing his development and growth as a songwriter, which has been an amazing experience for me. He is absolutely ecstatic about it. The guitar is his instrument, and he is doing very well at it. It has been an incredible privilege to collaborate with him at this point in my professional life." Throughout his life, Bubba had never failed to accompany his father to a variety of events, including the Country Music Hall of Fame Medallion Ceremony in 2007, the 44th Annual Academy of Country Music Awards in 2009, where George was honored as Artist of the Decade, and the 50th Annual ASCAP Country Music Awards in Nashville in 2012. Bubba joined his father on stage in Arlington, Texas in 2014 for a performance that took place during the final stop of George's The Cowboy Rides Away tour, which had been going on for 2 years. This song, which was written by the father himself, was performed by the father and son duo. Following the conclusion of that concert, George decided to stop touring, and the performance was captured for the live concert special titled George Strait, The Cowboy Rides Away, that was broadcast on CMT. Bubba, on the other hand, has yet to make any plans to stop writing songs for his father in the near future because he finds great pleasure in collaborating with his father. Despite the fact that he does not use social media, his wife, Tamara Strait, who is a real estate agent, frequently posts pictures of the two of them on Instagram. Tamara was a silver dancer at the San Antonio Spurs game in 2005, which is where they had their first encounter. In 2010, they announced their engagement, and in December of that same year, they tied the knot. There are 2 children that the couple has, George Harvey Strait III, who was born in 2012, and Jillian Louise Strait, who was born in 2016. In point of fact, Harvey actually joined his grandfather on stage at the Houston Rodeo Show, where the 2 of them sang George's song, God and Country Music, together. Tamara shared this information on Instagram at one point. Subsequently, during the 6th game of the World Series in 2022, he and his sister, along with their mother and Grandma Norma, were present. While Grandpa George and Harvey were responsible for making the play ball call, Grandpa George was wearing a Houston Astros hat and jersey. Cowboys and Indians were informed by George in 2022 that his grandson had played drums for a period of time, and that he might return to the instrument at a later time. On the other hand, he is currently interested in fishing, hunting, and baseball. In addition, George mentioned that his granddaughter has performed a few songs, and they are quite impressive. Despite the fact that it is too soon to speculate on their futures, George has said that he will be there for them no matter what they decide to do. The journey that George Strait took from being a boy from a small town in Texas to becoming a music icon all over the world is one that exemplifies determination, passion, and perseverance. Even in the face of personal tragedies and difficulties in the business world, he never wavered in his determination to pursue his dreams. The close relationship that George has maintained with his family, particularly with his son Bubba, has been a testament to his grounded nature and values, in addition to the legendary career that he has had. After a life that is deeply rooted in ranching and rodeo, George Strait has truly become a beloved icon of country music, if not the true king of the genre. His career has been marked by chart-topping hits for decades. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.